Hello everyone. So it's almost 12 midnight here, and I actually came back from my class today. I had two classes, and each of these classes were 2 hours and 15 minutes long. So as soon as I reached back from my class, I went to bed and I fell asleep. So that was at around 2:30 in the afternoon, and I woke up at around 10:30. So am it seems I was pretty tired because I didn't realize when I fell asleep, and because I woke up so late, I could not go out for dinner. So I'm really hungry, and all I have with me is this, are some biscuits and a bottle of juice. And that is what I'm actually feeding myself with right now, and I'm hoping that I don't get too hungry at night. But the thing is, my class was pretty interesting today. I had two classes. The first one was with Czech students, so there were quite a lot of students in the Czech class, and the second one was with the international students. There were only four international students today, because it seems they are still, international students have all the students have not reached here. They're still coming, and so from the classes that I've had, my experience has been really good. It was such a good, both the classes were very good in the sense the students were very participative, they were very interactive, and we could have a lot of discussion in the class. So I found the classes very interesting as well. And so I have actually, the record of my lecture. It's 2 hours long lecture, so if I upload that lecture, it's going to be too long. So what I've done is I've just put some clips together, and I'm uploading these clips here as my lecture. So if you're interested, please watch this lecture, and if you have any comments or any feedback, I'm always open for that. I'm always willing to take feedback. I'm always willing to learn, and I'm always willing to accept that I still have a lot of room to improve on. But overall, I'm very grateful for this opportunity, grateful to Royal Thimphu College, grateful to Palacky University, grateful to Erasmus, and grateful to everyone who is been there for me, supporting me and praying for me. Thank you everyone. And yeah, for now I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to have my dinner. That is what you have to do, when you are away from home. At times you'll have to manage with anything and everything that's there. Oh, now that I think about, I do have some hummus and all in my fridge, so I can also have those. I have some cheese as well, and if I get really hungry, then I'll really have to eat cheese. So yeah, that's it for now, and thank you for watching this video. Bye bye.
To give you some brief introduction on Bhutan, we have a democratic constitutional monarchy. Our head of the state is still the king. I don't know if you have ever seen our royal family. We have a very young, handsome king, and a very beautiful young queen as well. We have this democratic constitutional monarchy still, and we have the head of the government, who is the prime minister. And so far we have had 3 elections, and we have always had 3 different governments. The languages that we speak, the major language is Dzongkha, and it's also the official language, considered to be the official language, but there are many different dialects, like around 24 to 25 different dialects within Bhutan. But if you come to Bhutan, you will be fine, because most of the people do speak English, so you will not have to worry about that. And then when it comes to religion, yes, it's predominantly a Buddhist country, so that's why Buddhist is the major religion there, but we also have Hinduism and other different religions. I myself am Christian, so there are people who practice different religions, but Buddhism is what's predominantly practiced in Bhutan. So yes, as I said in the beginning, our development philosophy is the concept of GNH. We do not emphasize much on GDP, and it was our fourth king who came up with this concept of GNH. And according to him, he says that if people are not happy, it doesn't make sense to have a lot of materialistic wealth in the country. So that's why we emphasize a lot on the happiness aspect of the people. Now, economically speaking, the disadvantage for us has been because of our location. We are a landlocked country. We do not have access to any sea, ocean, or anything like that. If you look at history, the countries that have been able to relatively do better has mostly been countries that have access to water overall, but we do not have that. And our country has remained isolated for a very long time. We did not want to open up to the world. We were very skeptical about the world, and you will see that we were the country that was never colonized. So until 1960, we did not have any kind of economical link with any other countries. The tourism policy is very strict also in Bhutan. If you are going to come to Bhutan as a tourist, you will have to pay $250 per night. We as Bhutanese believe so much in preserving our culture. We are very worried because if you think about it, Bhutan is such a small country. If not for culture, we have nothing else to be proud of. Right? So if you today in this very fast developing world, we have this major, huge countries, so well developed and have very good infrastructure and everything. If you look around, this is a very, very well infrastructured country. Bhutan do not have all of those. So all we try and stand by is our culture. Now, when it comes to food, I don't know what is the food of here, Czech people. What's the food that is known among the Czech people? What would you say is the food? Is there one specific food that's known?
We usually eat some pork here. Traditionally, I would say not very much today, but traditionally some cabbage, sour cabbage, and some dumplings, or like there is usually some meat, usually pork.
Okay, then you will be able to adjust very well in Bhutan, that means, right? So because it's similar to us, Bhutanese eat a lot of pork as well, meat overall, a lot of meat. Women have obviously equal right, that's not a question, but sometimes a little bit more rights than the men. But when it comes to participation of women in leadership, we do not see as many women in leadership positions. So again, this is some kind of behind the scene, something's happening there. Why, if women are so powerful in Bhutan, and if women have so much right, and women are given so much preference, how come women are not stepping out to become leaders? That is the question. So you will see that this is a story of every society, that there is something that's unspoken, right? So women, obviously, as a woman, although we are given more right than the men in terms of inheritance and everything, but you're expected to, when you're at home, your brother can sit and watch television, but you're expected to be in the kitchen. You're expected to be at least, cleaning the house or whatever. And if you are someone who is sitting like your brother and doing the same thing, you're considered to be not such a good woman or a daughter or whatever. But at the same time, when guys do that, it's not the same story. Because he's a guy, it's okay. He's a boy, right? So let him sit and enjoy and watch some sports or whatever. But if women choose to do that, then that's a different story. So there are certain things, it's about how we as a Bhutanese society are raising our daughters. That is what's making the difference into whether women are stepping out to become leaders or not. Right? So it's not just about giving the constitutional right, it's not just about saying that women have more right or giving more land or wealth to women, but it is also about raising them to become leaders. And that is what we are trying to change today in the modern society. We are trying to tell now, because I teach in an institution which is all young adults, so I constantly try and tell them that you got to change your household environment. Only then we will have women who will come up and lead the society, or will become confident enough to lead. Otherwise, women will be given the opportunity, and that is what people are saying today. Women have equal right. It's not that women have to struggle or whatever. They have all the equal right. But why aren't women doing it then? Right? It's not nobody's fault. It's not society's fault then. If women are given equal opportunity, and despite that, if they do not want to take the opportunity, it's not society's fault, right? But then again, even in a very happy country, a very happy society, a country known as a happy society, there are some unspoken things that's behind the scene happening. Right? So that is very important for us. So it's not, I don't know how is the situation here in terms of gender in Czech. How do you feel about, the rights of men and women here in the country?
I mean, we have the same rights, but I would say that there are like the stereotypes the same as in Bhutan.
Yes, right. So the stereotypes are, I guess, it's everywhere. It's the same story in every society. So there are equal rights and everything, but then there are some stereotypes. And then I feel like it's usually not to do with the modern men. I'm sure the guys sitting here in this particular class, there are 3 guys here, I'm sure they are very supportive, and I'm sure they are modern men. They are going to work equally as their wives, and they are going to raise their kids equally, participate in raising their kids equally as their wives. But then there are somewhere, in one particular generation has failed actually. I don't know which generation, somewhere this mentality shift has not happened. Right? And there are some men who still believe that because you are a woman or you are a wife, you should be taking care of the children. Or even in society-wise also, we say that, women, even if we give equal opportunity to women, over time women might get pregnant and then may not be as efficient. So women have to choose whether to have a family or have a career. So because of all these things, there is always this stereotype that goes on behind the scene, and that actually somehow becomes a hurdle for women to lead or come up in the leadership position. So even in Bhutan, women have right and everything, all rights are given to women, but then when it comes to leading the society, it becomes very difficult for women because we have so many other responsibilities and so many other stereotypes and all those things. And not just that, the way we were raised, not me actually, my dad raised me pretty well actually to be independent and leader and all those things. But many of the women who are raised in Bhutan are somehow told that you are a woman and be a little bit quiet, don't speak as, you should not be the loudest one in the room and all those things. So because of that, that is always, I know that my society is such a beautiful society, it's a peaceful society, and I'm so happy and proud to be a Bhutanese. But at the end of the day, if I just ignore all the negatives in the society and say my society is all perfect, then I think that's not realistic, right? So there are things that are not perfect in any society, and that's the same story with our society as well. But the one thing that's very good about our society is that we have pretty good relationship with the ecology. Environment is something that we hold very dear to our heart, and we make sure that we take care of the environment, right? So Bhutan is known as the only carbon negative country, and because we have enough forest cover to absorb the carbon dioxide, absorb more carbon dioxide than what we produce. So that's why it's known as carbon negative. If you come to Bhutan, you will see a lot of forest everywhere. And that is the requirement from the constitution. It's the constitution that somehow imposes this preservation of the environment on us. So Article 5, Section 3 of the Constitution of Bhutan says, the government shall ensure that in order to conserve the country's natural resources and to prevent degradation of the ecosystem, a minimum of 60% of Bhutan's total land shall be maintained under forest cover for all times to come. So that means right now our forest cover is around 71 to 72%. We are way above our minimum requirement. But the thing is, 60% is, even if we start to industrialize very fast, and if we develop, our constitution will not let us go below 60%. So even if we have to develop and industrialize and cut down trees and destroy some forests, we can go at the max till 60%, and then beyond that, we will not be able to do. And
so if I may, just something with this.
Yes, please.
Because in here, like the Western culture, we see that people are trying to shift a bit, right? So there is this rising tide and rising number of vegetarians and vegans, and does this translate to Bhutan as well? How is it, or do people don't care?
Now people are starting to care actually. Some do that because of the more to do with religion. Many people do because of religion. But when it comes to this Western context of veganism and all those things, now the new generation is becoming aware, and new generation is to some extent trying to adopt this particular method of trying to go vegan and all. But it's going to be difficult for Bhutanese, because Bhutanese are, meat lovers. They like their meat. They love their meat. Not just like, they love their meat. So I guess it's going to be difficult, but the younger generation is changing, obviously.
For example, I would like to ask you about, because you're such a traditional country, how's it, for example, with the dresses, when the tourists come, if they need to wear
Sorry, you're saying that, is it?
or is it necessary to wear your dress?
Oh, no.
When they keep their tradition?
No, not at all. We do not require tourists to wear our traditional dress. So most of the tourists who come, they wear because they want to, but then otherwise, if they don't want to, it's not required.
You said that you have the access for internet and TV for like the last 20 years, and you have also American or European channels or information
Yes.
accessible. So the children or the young generation don't want to change the traditional way of the dresses.
Exactly. Yes. The younger generation, in terms of dresses, it's not much of a problem, right? But in terms of other traditional values, like for instance, our traditional game is archery, right? Hardly anyone knows how to play archery. Everyone is on mobile games these days, right? So if you ask a young boy, whether you would prefer to play a game on your PUBG or whatever on your mobile phone, or would you want to go out and play archery, they would obviously say want to stay home and play the game. No one is interested in all these things. And not just that, we have this thing of our traditional songs, dances and all. It's fading now. People do not know, and the older generation is already worried that we will not carry this forward. Right? There's so much worry going on in the society. If you look at the current generation, they are all dancing in Korean songs, Western songs, and all those things, and they are very good dancers. But when it comes to traditional dances, hardly anyone knows that. So yes, so the younger generation is trying to change, and not just that, there is an influence of the external culture a lot, especially the Koreans. Right? Most of our youngsters are trying to look just like Koreans, trying to act just like Koreans, be just like Koreans, right? And that is actually, pretty harmful. I feel like if in other ways, obviously there's so much to learn from Western countries. There's so much to learn from other societies. But if we feel like if we change the core of who we are. Now, if I try and be like Korean, if I try and act a little bit like Korean, and maybe I might somehow, by trying really hard, I might look somewhat like Korean, and I might somehow some people among 10 people, one might say, oh, she's a little bit like Korean or whatever. But then if I be myself, then I'm 100% Bhutanese, right? And that is who I want to be. But then our younger generation is actually somehow drifting away from that, trying to miss the point that actually if you go around, the moment people come out of Bhutan, people take so much pride in saying that they are Bhutanese. Because though we are a small country, there's nothing in Bhutan actually, there's hardly anything. We are a small country, hardly visible in the world and everything, but I wouldn't want to shy away from the fact that I'm a Bhutanese. And that's a matter of pride for me, because as a small country, we have still been able to leave our mark in some way or the other. But then, the younger generation today, I'm sure they will learn over time that it's all in vain when you're trying to be like someone else, trying to adopt some other culture and everything. But that is a problem today. We are trying to, make sure that we have that balance somehow. We understand, we learn from others, but at the same time, not forget our roots, right? Where we are and who we are actually. How about, the culture here? What is the youth culture here? How do the youth here feel? Are they proud to be? Do you think people from Czech, the younger people, maybe younger than you, right? You are already in college level, so I'm sure by now you know who you are. You're pretty confident and you know your identity, so you don't have to try and be like anyone else. But the younger generation, the ones who are still in school and teenagers and all, do you think that they are also influenced by some other? Yes? Which culture do you think has an influence?
I think big influence has social media. So through this, I don't know, USA
somehow
Yeah.
disappearing. Yeah.
Also,
And it,
also we don't have this, if I example, we don't have this, what for example Americans have or something, that they really nurture the patriotism.
Yes.
We don't have that so much in Czech or I feel. So unless you do sports or you really into sports or something, you don't have this, like Czech national pride so much. Especially when you're younger.
I feel like it's each one of our responsibility to make sure we preserve that, right? Because that is what makes you, for instance, you are identified as Czechs, right? So where is your root? That makes a huge difference. I am identified as a Bhutanese. So if I don't try and preserve, obviously I would like to believe that I am a very forward-thinking, modern woman, but at the same time, I would also not like to forget that I have my roots from Bhutan, and that is where I'm from, and I would like to make sure that root is strong. Otherwise, again, I might, if I fall off from the tree, then my branches will just dry off within no time, right? I will have no identity. So I think it's each one of our responsibility. So every culture has its beauty, right? And then if you look around here, I feel like from yesterday, just I've gone around the city, and this is such a beautiful city, right? There's so much history to it, right? It was at one time somewhat the capital of Moravia area or whatever, right? So it has so much history to it. So it's a something that you got to take pride in. Let the world know this is who we are in Olomouc or as Czech people or whatever. So that is for with every culture, every country. We need to make sure we preserve that, and that is what we are trying to do as well in Bhutan. It's a very small number of people and very small country, very tiny country. As a young person, I did not understand either. I used to think like, why this, older generation keeps imposing this tradition, culture, and everything on us. But as I'm growing older, I'm understanding why it's important. And so as a young person, I did not understand this much. But this perception is changing over time, and I feel like it's important. I want to make sure, I understand the world and everyone in the world, different cultures, different people and everything, but at the same time, I also want to make sure that I do not forget the roots that I have, the culture that I am actually from. So that, I feel like that is important. Yeah? Any other questions?
I know, because I've heard it quite a higher rate of suicides. So how is it possible that you focus on happiness?
Exactly. That's the thing, right? So we have very high youth suicide especially. This data was collected in 2017, and this is known as Population, Housing and Census of Bhutan. So if you look at Bhutan, you will see as of 2017, 30th of March of 2017, the population of Bhutan was 735,553 people. And here, non-Bhutanese were also taken into account. So that's why out of this population, 681 and 720 people were Bhutanese, whereas 53,833 people were non-Bhutanese. Now, the reason that there are a huge number of non-Bhutanese is because we have hydropower sector, where a lot of construction work and all are done, and there we have a lot of Indians are hired, Indian laborers are hired. We have high unemployment in the country. You will see that, according to 2017 report, it says that 10.6% of youth are unemployed, and now it's more actually. It's increased to 12 point something. So the thing is, despite that high unemployment, we have huge inflow of laborers from our immediate neighbor down south. And the reason is because that's a hard work, and we do not want to do that kind of work, right? So construction is difficult, so people do not do that. So that's why you will see huge number of non-Bhutanese population in the country. So, and the other thing is, our population is, majority of our people are still in the rural areas. So around 62.6% of the population are rural dwellers, and so as I said, there are 20 districts which are known as zonkas. Thimphu Zonka, obviously Thimphu is way too crowded. From the total population, just 19.1% of the population is residing in Thimphu itself. Look at the difference between the most populated and least populated Zonka. Least populated Zonka has only 0.5% of the total population of the country. And then the median age of the population is 26.9. That means half of our population is of age less than 26.9. So we have a very young population. And the rural dependency ratio is 47. That means for every 100 working population, we have 47 people who are depending on these 100 people, right? So that's another concern. And then when it comes to education, literacy rate is 71.4 now, but then this also includes the traditional education, religious learning, and any kind of non-formal education as well. The literacy rate is high among children below the age of 10 because everyone actually starts off sending their kids to school now, because education is free, so no one keeps their kids at home. Everyone do send their kids to school, but once they reach the age of 6. But the thing is, along the way, they start to drop out. So the literacy rate starts to decline as the age increases. And we also have, now free education is available for everyone until high school. But after high school, you will be provided scholarship based on your merit. If you do really well, then you get to go to government-funded colleges, or government provides scholarship for you to go to other colleges. So our college is a private institution, so it's very expensive for Bhutan actually. The students that come to our college has to pay their own fee, and it's not a small fee, so it's quite expensive. Otherwise, if they do well, they get to go to government colleges, or government will fund them to come to our college. So that is there. Bhutan's life expectancy right now is 70.2, which is an improvement from the last time we collected our data, that was in 2005. So in 2005, the life expectancy was 66.3, but now today it's 70.2. Now, Bhutan is one of the smallest economy in the world. Our GDP is just around $2 billion US. So there are so many billionaires all over the world. So people are so much richer than our country as a whole, right? So, and the economic growth rate at the moment is around 7.5 to 7.6. And other reason that we cannot grow so fast is because anytime a development prospect comes into the country, we analyze it, see if it aligns with our cultural aspect, does it preserve our environment, does it pass our GNH screening tools and all those things. So because of that, all the developmental activities do not get through in Bhutan. The other thing is that Bhutan is about to graduate, as I said earlier, from the least developed countries category. And Bhutan may be one of the first Asian countries to graduate from the least developed country to a developing country status. So what happens is, when you are to graduate from LDC category, you have to pass the test at least 3 times. So Bhutan has already passed twice. Now we are to actually, our graduation deadline is 2021. But Bhutan has requested to postpone the graduation for 2023 because Bhutanese economy work on this 5-year plan basis, and we are right now we are on 12th 5-year plan, and our 12th 5-year plan will end in 2023. That's why Bhutan government has requested the UN people to shift it to 2023. So that is when it's going to happen. And when a country is to graduate from least developed category to a developing category, there are 3 criteria that the country will have to pass through. So the first thing is per capita gross national income. The second one is human asset index, and the third one is economic vulnerability index. Now, the first 2 is something that we have easily passed. We have been able to pass the gross national income test. We have also been able to pass the human asset test, but economic vulnerability is something that we have not been able to pass in both the tests so far. But then the UN committee somehow has made an exception for Bhutan because of the topography of Bhutan. Because Bhutan is a landlocked country with difficult terrain, so to some extent there is an exception for us when it comes to economic vulnerability. We want to make sure that our economy is resilient. For instance, suddenly we become a developing country, and then if we are not efficient or capable, if we do not have that resilience, then we might actually become worse off being a developing country than being a least developed country. Right? So that's why, and the problem is that our economy is not diversified much. Most of our eggs are all in hydropower. We are depending so much on hydropower. Our public debt, more than 90% of our public debt is all to do with hydropower. And somehow, now obviously, even World Bank tells us that you don't have to worry because hydropower is going to generate income for you in the long run, so you don't have to worry about your debt. But then, with the change in ecology, with the climate change that's happening today, how confident can we be in a sector like hydropower, which is so dependent on climate, dependent on water, ecology, right, hydrology and everything. So that is something that is starting to concern us actually. How much can we really depend on hydropower overall? So it's very important that before we graduate, right, or from the least developed category, we have this diversification done. So now we have started, actually the government has started to come up with a lot of programs where they are promoting the entrepreneurs, promoting the small scale industries, and trying to see where else can we invest, what else can we do to generate income for the country, and not just depend on the hydropower itself. As I said, economic vulnerability is something that we have not passed. It's going to be difficult for the country to pass this test because first thing is hydropower dependence is too much. We're depending too much on that. And then structural transformation. Now, agriculture, as I said, is one of the highest employing sector, meaning most of our people are still in the agriculture sector. But when it comes to investment in agriculture, least investment happens in agriculture. Most of our people are dependent on agriculture, but at the same time, if we are not investing on agriculture sector, then that will be another problem, and that is one of our vulnerability. Yes, so we are also very vulnerable to climate change. So though not our doing, though we are trying our best to conserve the environment, though we are trying best to preserve the environment, but because of the development that is happening around the world, because of the damage that's happening to the environment over the world, actually we are at a very risky area for floods and bursting of lakes, dams, and all those things. So because of if our lakes start to burst out, then we will have a major problem as well. Other thing is high volume of import and very less export. Bhutan imports a lot, everything from a small needle to everything, what we wear, what we eat. Most of our things are imported because we do not produce. And when it comes to exporting, we do not have much. So that's why we are not yet a member of World Trade Organization either. And many people actually in Bhutan started to talk about, we have been talking about this, should we join World Trade Organization? And World Trade Organization have come to us many times. I have sat with the World Trade Organization team as well, and they have somehow tried to convince us that it's time for us to join World Trade Organization. But when you look at our country, World Trade Organization will benefit a country which has a lot to offer to the foreign market and lot to get back from the foreign market. But for Bhutan, at the moment, whatever we can offer, whatever we can sell, we already have bilateral relationships with these countries. So the thing is, even if we join World Trade Organization, it may not actually be a lot of advantage for us at the moment. But when we are able to produce more, when we become more production-centered economy, maybe we will benefit. So, but the thing is, that is another thing that we have to think as a small economy. So it looks good, everyone is joining World Trade Organization, and everyone, all the countries that are doing well are part of World Trade Organization. So it seems like Bhutan should also be a part of World Trade Organization because it's good for everyone, it's working for everyone. But the thing is, again, there are different aspects to Bhutan. Bhutan is a different, very unique country because of which it may not necessarily work out for us like it's working out for the other countries. When we think carefully, there are a lot of disadvantages, for now at least. I'm not saying that we would never want to join World Trade Organization, but we are not prepared yet. We are not at that stage where we can compete with the world market. We do not have much to offer because otherwise we'll be losing a lot of foreign reserve and nothing will come in. We'll buy a lot from the foreign countries, but because we have nothing to sell, we'll only lose our foreign reserve and we will not be able to gain foreign currency. So the public debt is increasing because of hydropower. As I said earlier, hydropower does seem like a very good sector for us to invest on and all those things. But again, there is also a problem if something happens that hydropower is questionable. But the thing is, the good things that you see in Bhutan, the opportunities or the positive aspect of Bhutan that you will see, and why we can be positive about Bhutan and say that maybe Bhutan will do better, is because first thing is political stability. Our politics is not at all complicated like the politics in other countries. We do not have this major, politics going on in the country. So everyone basically feels like they are trying to do their best, and people do not hate on each other so much. So because of that political stability, that is one of our strengths. The second thing is environmental conservation. So because of our relationship that we have with ecology, at least our intention to conserve it, that is another strength. Efficiency in policy and institutions. So our policy and institutions are relatively better. Now, when it comes to labor, there are around 537,728 people, and out of this, 63% are economically active, and rest 36.7% are economically not active, right? Or they are economically inactive. And you'll also see there is more male in the labor force compared to female, and this is the same throughout in all age groups. There are more male participation and compared to female participation, and the reason could be exactly what we discussed about in the beginning. It's the same. And then when it comes to unemployment, there are around 8,137 persons in the labor force who are, meaning people who are economically active, who are unemployed, and this means the overall, according to 2017 report, this is. So now it has changed, increased obviously, it's 3 point something actually. But according to 2017 report, the unemployment rate for the country was 2.4, right? But the problem is with the youth unemployment. Youth unemployment is 10.6. Now it's 12% approximately. So it is increasing. And the female youth unemployment is also higher than the male unemployment. So not just that, but there is a lot of brain drain happening in the country. A lot of our young people are moving abroad. Bhutan has a huge migration, internal migration and external migration. People move within the districts, within each, if I belong to one district, because I also don't live in my district. So I'm part of that 48.7% actually, right? So moving from one part to another. So there's a huge migration happening in the country. And the reason is because the infrastructure development is not properly balanced. It's very imbalanced development that's happening. Some part of Bhutan are highly developed, other parts are not at all developed. So because of that, people, and the highest migration that happened is in rural and urban migration. People move from rural, as I said, rural areas are totally vacated, whereas urban areas are too crowded. So rural to urban migration is the highest as compared to other flows of migration. It accounts to 21.7% of all population born in Bhutan and almost half of the total migration of migrant population. So from the total migrant population, 44.2% are just to do with rural to urban migration. Yes. The reason people say that they move are this. First one is family moving out of their district. And the second one is they move for employment, and then also they move for education. Because, see, and we have been talking about this a lot, because if government gives proper facility in every district, people do not have to move. But because this is not equally distributed, people have to move around a lot. They have to go in search of better opportunities, better schools, and all those things. So that is to do with the regional disparity. There's a huge. Now, if you come to Bhutan, you will first enter Paro and then you will come to Thimphu. So you will feel like it's pretty well developed, but that's not the real picture of what Bhutan is overall. There are other parts of the country which do not even have proper roads yet. So that is one major problem when it comes to development. Poverty is mostly to do with the rural people. Rural people are poorer, and poverty rate according to 2017 report was 8.2%. So agriculture is the main source of income, but then again, there is no investment. We do give preference to GNH over GDP, as I mentioned in the beginning. So the very goal of our government is to make sure that we have a government that tries and look after the people and caters to the need of their happiness as well, not just focus too much on the materialistic aspect of the country. So that was enacted in 18th of July 2008. That's it for my lecture for the day today. I guess we can discuss few questions right now. Yes.
We have a good question. You talk about the political structure and that you got some problems. I wanted to ask you if you got some political opposition. And,
yes.
And what are their main aims? They aim for the problems you talked about the pregnancy or the unemployment, and if so. Do they have some accomplishments, or how does it look?
Yes. So what happens is we do have an opposition party and the leading party. So they usually discuss in the parliament. So whatever they discuss in the parliament does come out in the newspaper, and we do get to read that. So from whatever I have read, what happens is every time now, because this is a relatively new government, and opposition party has been constantly talking about, how about they have been pressurizing them on the promises that they have made to the society. If you have seen certain parliaments, people start, stand up and start shouting at each other, fighting with each other. That does not happen, because again, that does not cater to our culture. So people would not shout and fight with each other, but they will stand and raise their question and say this is not working out and all those things. Yes.
So we're talking about the poverty in the Czech Republic. It's a big issue that we get so many homeless people in the big cities. Does Bhutan face the same problem?
Exactly. So yes. So that's pretty interesting to me as well. Even when I went to Germany, Germany is one of the Western European countries and supposed to be pretty rich, right? But so many people out in the street, but for Bhutan that is not a problem actually. We do not see homeless people out in the street. You might see people who are shabbily dressed, and we did not even have beggars until very recently. Now we will see few people asking for money on the road and all these things, but it's very recent phenomenon. Otherwise we do not even have that. So the thing is, because in Bhutan, maybe it's to do with the cultural context or whatever, we are supposed to look after our parents once they grow old, and also children usually keep their parents at home and look after them and all. Maybe it's to do with that, but usually young people are never out on the street. It's usually sometimes old people, maybe their children have forsaken them or whatever. We see them out in the street, not sleeping on the street, but begging, asking for money and all out in the street. Otherwise, yeah, we do not see these kind of homeless people out in the street.
Why do you think villagers or people in Bhutan didn't want democratization?
Okay, yes.
Why was
Exactly. That's a very good question actually. Why it was? Because that, again, to understand that, you have to understand the way Bhutanese society functions. We have always been looking at kings as gods. Kings were somewhat considered to be god to Bhutanese people. And then now if you go to a Bhutanese house, and if you see a king's picture, you cannot say, oh, that's the king of Bhutan. You cannot point at him like this. You have to make sure that you say, oh, that's the king of Bhutan. So this is the way you point to a king. You have to do this, or that's our king, Jimmy Gesenami also. So there's so much of respect that we have for our kings and the royal family and all. On top of that, the fourth king was known to be a visionary and everything. So he actually, got us through some difficult times and everything. People thought he is doing fine. There's no need for anyone else to come and overtake him. People thought that he is the best leader that a country can have. So no one was prepared for it when he said that he is going to democratize the country. So that has a lot to do with how we perceive our kings. I hope you got a glimpse of what Bhutan is overall and who we are as a country. And yes, whenever you hear about GNH, I would say it is true to some extent, but again, do not buy into it just like that, and do not think Bhutan is all these, happy people surrounded by everyone all the time happy and all. Because, sometimes I've seen people, even on internet, if you check, people will, give a very different picture of who we actually are. And that actually is harming us more, because we are becoming too laid back, and we are not willing to take any kind of criticism, and not willing to accept that we are hypocrites and all those things. So sometimes, yes, it is, I wouldn't say that it's totally wrong. We are happy comparatively, and true that I cannot deny the fact that it is true that we are peaceful and happier. But then it's also important to understand that it's not perfect. There are things that can be improved, so many things that can be improved actually. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the diverse insights that you have shared with our students coming all the way from Bhutan. And if anybody happens to have more questions, I believe you'll be around.
Yes.
For the next coming couple of days. So if you feel like you want to approach our guest, you are very free to do that, and you can start yet another conversation. And before